day and welcome to Audacity Presents. I am getting a feedback on my microphone. Okay, maybe that will work. Y'all know I'm always having technical difficulties, but welcome to Audacity Presents. So, we are kicking off the new year with the study of angels. And last week was sort of an introduction to angels. We talked about the creations of angels and the purpose of angels and hierarchy of angels in reference to Christ and man. And I ended the session with a question. The question was, when Jesus became flesh, was he considered lower than the angels at that time? Let me tell you, I had a lot of discussion with individuals on this question, all the way up to our pastor at my church and ministers at my church and people that listen to the podcast. So I appreciate all of your input. And as I try to keep my podcast to a 10-15 minute minimum, I had to take all of the information that I gathered or the answers that I gathered to this question and try to sum it up. So the question was, when Jesus became flesh, when he became human, was he considered lower than the angels at that time? Because last week in our introduction of angels, we said that man was made a little lower than the angels, but Jesus was superior to the angels. So when Jesus became man, does that mean he was now lower than the angels? And so I start off with, we must remember being made a little lower than the angels and taking on body eternally did not in any way diminish the deity of Christ. This is from Hebrews 2:9. Jesus never ceased being God. He simply showed the meekness of God. And after the incarnation, he was the God man. So while 2:9, where it indicates Jesus, who was made a little lower than the angels for the suffering of death, we have to step back to Hebrews 2:7 that says, for a little while, that phrase is important, for a little while, he was made lower than the angels. And I love the way Dr. Tony Evans puts it in his commentary. He says, the Son temporarily became lower than the angels to realign heaven and earth. And as I said earlier, Jesus never stopped being God, but he temporarily became lower than the angels to realign heaven and earth. He was always God, always remained God. So today, I want to jump into the number of angels. I think that's something that it's talked about, but not really talked about. And I got into this deep study and research, asking myself the question of how many angels are there? Have you ever considered or asked yourself that question? Some people may not even be thinking about that, probably a lot of people. But some might believe there are only those angels mentioned in scripture, such as Gabriel and Michael and Lucifer. But biblically speaking, the Bible does not give a specific number of angels. What we do know is there are a lot of them. We can look in Hebrews 12:22 that says, but you have come to Mount Zion, to the city of the living God, the heavenly Jerusalem. You have come to thousands upon thousands of angels in joyful assembly. And we can also look at Revelation 5:11 that says, then I looked and heard the voice of many angels, numbering thousands upon thousands and 10,000s times 10,000. I even ran across where some had written that every person who has ever lived in history and those that are currently living has a guardian angel. And then I found others that wrote that the number of angels equate to the stars in the sky. And I kind of found, not kind of, but I found some scriptures that may hold true to angels equating to stars. When we look at Revelations 9:1, it says, "The fifth angel sounded his trumpet, and I saw a star that had fallen from the sky to earth." Or in Judges 5:20, "From the heavens the stars fought, from their courses they fought against Sisera." So both of these scriptures seem to reference angels as stars. But what we do know is that angels at God's command ministers to his people. Aren't you glad God has no callback or hold feature when his children are in distress? He can immediately dispatch an angel to care for and minister to each of us in our own time of need. And so now to even try to comprehend, and we can't, the number of angels that there are. Think about taking this vast number, this myriad of angels, thousands upon 10,000s times 10,000s, and let's try to categorize. Let's try to categorize these angels. And I'm going to start off very, very broadly to say that we can categorize angels into fallen and unfallen angels. We can start with that. We can say that unfallen angels are those that remain holy. And when you hear the term principalities, rulers, or powers, such as in Ephesians 6:12, for our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of the dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil and heavenly realms. Or in First Peter 3, who has gone into heaven and is at God's right hand with angels, authorities, and powers in submission to him. When we hear words like this, principalities, rulers, powers, we can easily refer to angels that they're speaking about. Now, these holy angels can then be classified further into archangels, such as Michael, who is most likely the head of all holy angels. And then there are angels that are messengers, like Gabriel, that spoke to Mary and Zechariah. And then there are holy angels that are cherubims and angels that are seraphims. And then there were a host of holy angels that were present at creation. We talked about that last week. There were a host of holy angels during the giving of the law to Moses, at the birth of Christ, at Christ's resurrection and his ascension. And there will be holy angels present at the rapture. Think of all of these angels. As I was putting this together and trying to wrap my head around the number of angels, although I never came to a conclusion of how many there were, but I think sometimes we fail to really even try to comprehend the greatness of God. Because God knows, and I'm getting ahead of myself, but it's just amazing that God knows these angels, where they are on both fallen and unfallen. He knows who we are all the way to the hairs on our head. And just to think about someone who who controls all of this, it's just amazing to me. So now let's spend a little time on fallen angels. And fallen angels are also further classified, just like the unfallen or the holy angels. Though there are many fallen angels, they do in no way outnumber the count of holy angels. And there are free fallen angels and bound fallen angels. Now, fallen angels are led by Satan, who was initially a cherub. And we'll get into more details around that later. But these fallen angels rebelled against God. When Satan fell, he took 1/3 of the angels with him. Now, consider the number of angels that we've talked about that is too many to count. And then try to wrap your brain around the fact that Satan took 1/3 of those angels. Now, the free fallen angels roam the earth in various ways. We can read in scripture, Mark 5:9, about the demon possessed man. It says, Then Jesus asked him, What is your name? And he said, My name is Legion, he replied, for we are many. And he begged Jesus again and again not to send them out. There are fallen angels that roam the earth in just multiple ways that we can't even wrap our head around. Now, the bound angels are awaiting the judgment, and these are bound fallen angels that are awaiting the judgment. We see in 2 Peter 2, for if God did not spare angels when they sinned, but sent them to hell, putting them in chains of darkness to be held for judgment. I want you to think about this. So it's so much information. I've been in information overload studying about angels, and I know I just stopped midpoint because I want you to take the time to think about what I've shared today. That the number of angels there are is too many for us to count. It's too many for us to even try to put a number on it. We can't even try to put a number on it. I was reading somewhere that said if angels equate to stars, that there are billions of stars in the galaxy. Think about that. And then just the simple fact that when Satan fell and he took 1/3 of the angels with him, think about how many angels that is. And then you have these angels that are bound, waiting for judgment. I mean, we're just talking about angels. We're not looking at man, and we're not looking at everything that Christ went through. We're looking at God and his creation of angels and their purpose. It is so much information. Did I say overload? It is like information overload. And so I want you to spend this week just thinking about what I have shared. And I want to leave you, of course, with a little homework that I ran across as I was preparing for today. I want you to tell me, who was the angel Abaddon? Abaddon. Or another name is Apollyon. Apollyon. I'm probably trying to pronounce every letter, and it may not be. But this is an angel that's mentioned in scripture that we rarely hear about, that I ran across. So I hope you can find who that angel is and let me know who that angel is and what was his purpose. So this is my merry moment. Hope. Y'all know that is my word for the year. Hope is having optimism, patience, and excitement for what is to come. Hope is having optimism, patience, and excitement for what is to come. My replay is an old one that just popped into my head last week, and I thought, I remember this song. And it is by Kirk Franklin, called Hosanna, that says, The angels bow down at the thought of you. The darkness gives way to the light for you. The price that you paid gives us life brand new. Hosanna forever. We worship you. Y'all have a good week, and we'll continue our study on angels next week.